Hey everybody, I'm Greg LaBeouf. Welcome to Awaken the Protector Within, and today we are going to have an intense conversation about the fear spike.
So the big question was this: what do good people do when a society's laws and institutions fail to keep them safe from aggression and violence? How do you get through a growing number of angry, hateful, aggressive people and still remain physically, mentally, and emotionally strong and positive? That was the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Greg LaBeouf, and welcome to Awaken the Protector Within.
Okay, I said we're going to have an intense conversation. It's going to be intense, but unfortunately it's going to be a bit one-sided, but I hope you join me for this. Here's the thing. All I care about is changing the effects of aggression, violence, and bullying. I want to end people's pain and suffering. Here's the problem. I believe that in our world, the solutions that we are all focused on, it is too narrow a focus. We are off center. Okay, so let's have a conversation and let's expand our focus and let's get to the root of what really can change the effects of aggression, violence, and bullying. What is it? It's the fear spike. Now, right there, I'm going to pause. Before we go any further than that, I want you to understand what is going on out there. You see, in our schools, in our places of work, out as we're living life, the focus right now on how we are going to try to prevent aggression, violence, and bullying is to create policies, procedures, laws, rules, punishments. These are all deterrents, and I'm glad they're there. I'm glad we have people fighting on that front. I'm glad we have people focused on those aspects of this solution, but we are not at the root. If we're ever going to really affect change, we have got to go down before we can go up. We've got to go down into the root of this. What is the root? This is where people are missing it. Okay? Every day, you know what my day consists of? Explaining to people, trying to get them to see the root. People are looking for solutions. Parents call me. Their kids are suffering from bullying, aggression, violence. They don't know what to do. And yet what they want is they want a solution. Can you teach my child what to say to their bully? Can you teach my child what to do if they're physically attacked? I have adults every day. I work at a pharmacy. My pharmacy was robbed and they were held at knife point, and the guy came in and he was crazy. I can't even leave my house. I can't go to work. I drive home from work and I feel like I'm being followed. I feel so insecure. Can you teach me what should I say when I'm being robbed? What should I do physically? How do I defend myself? Everybody's after the same thing, and I get it, but here, let's break this down. You're missing the root. Every day I got to explain to them and try to get them to see, to look down, to go down before they can go up. Okay, so the policies, the procedures, the laws, the penalties, the punishments, add more laws, add more rules, make them stiffer punishments, all that stuff, great, but you're never, and it will never, stop aggression, violence, and bullying. Because it's not going to change the circumstances. It's not going to stop an addict who's battling addiction from expressing and doing what they feel they need to do to get that fix. It's never going to stop somebody who's battling depression. It's not going to change what's going on and the toxic mental, emotional states that people go through a custody battle or through a nasty divorce or through any of these things. And so what is impressed must be expressed. So these people, whether it's these kids, will go to school and they will bully. These people will be out there at sporting events. They'll be out there and enter our places of business. Wherever human beings live and interact, there is going to be bullying, aggression, and violence. So all the deterrents and all the laws and all the rules and all the protocols, it's all great, but it's not the root. How do we eradicate the word victim? How do we prevent victimization? You see, we can't stop people from targeting. We can't even stop them from gaining some casualties. But we can stop people from becoming victims. How? Here it is. Understand the fear spike. You see, the first thing that happens in any confrontation, two young children, one bullying the other, even if that child that's bullying is so young that they don't even really realize that they're expressing in a way that is considered bullying, that is toxic or degrading to that other child. They're so small, they don't even understand that yet. What is going to occur in that other little child is a fear spike. It's wired into our survival system. It is part of our autonomic nervous system, the automatic stuff, respiratory, heart rate, blood pressure, the things that are going on in your body right now that you cannot just consciously control. You can't consciously up your heart rate 300 beats per minute as fast as you blink your eye just by thinking. It's not. It's automatic. Your survival system's in there. Your little child, their survival system's in there. And so anytime there's conflict as a child, in work, when that employee in that pharmacy was going about their day, and the second they turn around, from 1 second to the next, you got somebody handing you a note saying, give me this narcotic or I will stab you, don't test me, a fear spike happened automatically. It is the first thing you see. Fear in the fear spike is what you experience before you experience anything else. Like, if it was to go physical, if that child was to then be pushed or hit or humiliated or laughed at or mocked, the first thing that happens before the next thing that happens, before the experience, is the fear spike. Okay? We understand that, correct? Now, we have the fear spike. But guess what? When the fear hits, when the fear spike happens, it causes in us, it has an effect in 3 areas. The first is we have a physical meltdown. The fear spike happens and affects us physically. I should have just said physically. It affects us physically. The second is it affects us biochemically or physiologically. And the third, it affects us mentally and emotionally. Now, here's where the meltdown comes in. If the very first thing that happens is a fear spike, it's autonomic. It's going to happen. The fear spike happens. The second and next thing that has to happen is to control the fear spike. That's what has to happen. But it's not happening. The fear spike is the first thing that happens. And then we are not, because we have not been taught, because we don't know, because nobody knows, nobody's talking about it. We do not know how to regulate that fear spike. We don't know how to regulate our response. And so guess what? Meltdown occurs. A physical meltdown. You have that pharmacist that when they turn around and all of a sudden a person passes them a note, says, listen, give me this narcotic or I will stab you. I've got a knife in my pocket. Don't test me. And they physically couldn't move. They couldn't move from the counter to even go back to where that narcotic was stored. They couldn't go back to where they even have false narcotics that they can use to distract or as decoy narcotics. They couldn't remember the code to the safe. They couldn't do any of these things. They physically had a meltdown. Why? Because the fear spike occurred. On top of that, you have children at school. They go to school and you told them how many times, if somebody says something, go tell the teacher, but they don't go tell the teacher. They sit at their desk or they stand on the playground and they don't move. Why? Because physically they can't. Why? Because they've had a meltdown. Why? Because they've experienced the fear spike. Then they come home and they're telling you at home and now they're safe and it's over and you know they're physically safe. And yet at home they have a panic attack. They're crying uncontrollably. They can't catch their breath. They can't even speak to tell you what happened. They can't even express how they're feeling. Why? Because biochemically, they're out of control. You have that pharmacist that wakes up the next day after the robbery and they think, I got to get up and go to work. And all of a sudden, they go to turn their front door handle and they can't move. They can't do it. And next thing you know, they find themselves lying on the floor, the entranceway to their house, lying there, shaking uncontrollably. And their mind's going, what is the matter with me? I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my hands. It's like they can't even hear anything that's going on. They're experiencing tunnel vision. And now they're scared. They're like, what is going on? Am I having a stroke? They're having a biochemical, physiological meltdown is occurring in them. Why? Because of the fear spike. Now you have people like these young kids that come back and they start thinking, why am I broken? Why am I so different? You have that person that's lying on the floor going, oh my God, I'm having a stroke. I'm so weak. I'm so scared. Like, why am I so scared? All these things. But mentally and emotionally, they start having negative thoughts, negative self-image, negative belief patterns start to form. They're telling themselves a toxic story. Why? Because they're having a mental and emotional meltdown. All because of what? The fear spike. The fear spike. Now you say, listen, yeah, but in the event, I get it. A conflict happens, the fear spike occurs, and we don't know how to regulate response, so we have a meltdown. Physically, biochemically, and mentally and emotionally, we have a meltdown. But it's over. Whoo, we got out of it. We're okay. Family members, friends telling you, oh, thank God you're not hurt. It's okay, honey. It's over. You're safe at home now. Yet guess what? trauma gets trapped. When the fear spike occurs and you have the physiological, the mental, the emotional, and the physical meltdown, that gets trapped in your memory, and not just your mental, like not just your mind, it gets trapped in your physiology. It literally gets trapped in your cells, and then you have triggers. All of a sudden, you're walking down, you're out somewhere grocery shopping, and somebody walks up and hands you a piece of paper, a flyer, and you have a trigger. And you have a physiological, a mental, emotional, and a physical breakdown. Why? Because somehow, some way, some reason, that triggered when that person handed you that note and you thought you're in danger of losing your life. You have a child at school or they come home and something happens, a noise, a smell, whatever it is, and it triggers, and all of a sudden, boom, they have a meltdown, and you're sitting there going, I don't know what's the matter with my child. Oh my God, are you okay? Talk to me. And they can't. Why? Because they're having a meltdown. Why? Because they had a trigger. Why? Because they had to experience the fear spike and they didn't understand how to regulate that response. You see, if we understand the fear spike, this is what I spend my day teaching people all the time. Listen, the first thing that happens is a fear spike. What you need to learn to do is regulate your response. See, when I became the victim of a violent crime, the deterrence, the punishments, all that type of stuff, that was never going to help me. I had gone the long path, the worst way. I had the fear spike. I had the physical encounter, and I got beat and I got broken physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Why? Because I couldn't regulate any of it. I had to go backwards and dig through all of that trauma and de-link all of the memory and all of the muscle emotional memories and all the synapses. I had to go backwards and I had to break down all the scar tissue and all the trauma that was locked in there. And I had to learn how to regulate all of that. But it's only once you understand the fear spike, learn to regulate your response to the fear spike, gain control, then and only then can functional actions occur. See, I have schools that call me and they say, listen, we have the zero tolerance policy and we want to be proactive, and we have kids as young as 10 years old committing suicides from social aggression and bullying. We've got a massive problem. We have adults, 40% of adults go to work every day and deal with this and suffer the traumas. And it affects how they can work and how they can provide their families. And it affects the interaction in their marriage. It affects their intimacy in their marriage, which causes the break. Do you see the ripple effect of all of this stuff? But why? What do we have to do? We are having a fear spike. It's the first thing that happens. We have the fear spike and we don't know how to regulate that. So no functional action can occur after it. Not with any real consistency. Not with any real purpose. So what we need to do is when I go into these schools, I tell them that what we need to do is we need to teach, it's plain, teach them about the fear spike. Get them to understand that it's normal, part of their survival system. I have 5 core programs, and those 5 programs are all about the foundation, because it's all about what? Teaching people you're going to have a fear spike. Why? Part of your autonomic nervous system. It's built into your survival system. I'll say it in simpler terms, but this is what you got to understand. It's all part of the autonomic nervous system. Fear spike's going to happen. Then all of the programs are about what? Let's regulate that. Know it's normal. Anticipate it, understand that it's there. Hell, we can even help you experience it when you're in a safe environment so you can experience it, feel and go, oh my God, what's happened to me? Wow, look at it. It's affected me physically. How? Everyone's different. This is how it affected me physically. Whoa, that's my biochemistry. Wow, that's how it affects me physiologically. That's what that is? Crazy. Third one, oh my God, I could see where mentally and emotionally I would start thinking this and I would start feeling that way, but none of that's true. That's all no, oh my goodness. Fear spike, understand what happens, how it affects you in those 3 areas, and then we give them tools to regulate their response. So now instead of up, instead of down, and all over the board, we regulate it. And guess what? Only when they can regulate that response, now we can teach them any functional action. Now we can teach them verbal skills for how to deflect or how to de-escalate or how to, all of this different stuff. Now we can teach them physical tools and say, listen, if it comes to it, here's how you defend yourself. Here's how you remove yourself. Here's how we protect and defend other people. Here's how we can do all this stuff. All of a sudden now, all because fear spike, regulate the response to the fear spike, functional action follows. That's the root of how we are going to end victimization. Why? Because if I'm targeted, anybody could target me right now. I could go outside and I could find myself confronted by 3 or 4 attackers, armed with weapons and everything else. I can't control that. I can be head on a swivel. I can have situational awareness. I can do all the best stuff that I can to try to see threat and avoid threat, but it can still happen. And if that happened, they're targeting me. They may even cut me. They even beat me. They may even fracture bones. They may even, they might hurt me. All of that stuff I may now have become the casualty of. But I will never, and nor can anybody ever, cause me to feel and become the victim again. Because when the fear spike occurs, I understand how to regulate my response to that, physically, biochemically, mentally, and emotionally. And I have the functional actions. I know what I need to do. Whether it works or doesn't work, I don't concern myself with the result. You can only ever truly control one thing. I know what I'm going to do. And I know how to regulate my response so that I have the best chance of doing it to the best of my ability. And at the end of the day, I don't need anything other than that. They can't break you. I became the victim when I realized that they had taken something from me mentally and emotionally, and I had no ideas. You become a victim when you have no choice, when you have no power, when you have no voice, when you have no knowledge, when you have no understanding, when you have no control. That is what makes you a victim, not when your leg is broken or your face is fractured. That's not what it is. You don't become a victim when you have, painful emotions. You don't become a victim when you have, the odd sad thought. These are not the things that make you a victim. You become a victim when you lose your power, when you lose your voice, when you lose choice, when you have no understanding, when you have no control. That's when you become victim. All of this can be changed. We got to start at the root. How? First thing that always happens is the fear spike. Regulate our response. Functional action can follow. All right, everybody, I'm going to leave it at that. I really wish that we could have been sitting down together and had this conversation together because I love to hear your feedback. I want to get more people talking about this. This is an episode to share. If you know anybody that needs to hear this, anybody that this could help, any parents out there, any people that you've suffered traumas at work and you're battling through this, understand that why you're struggling is because you had the fear spike and now you didn't understand how to regulate that response. So no functional action could happen from that. If you're still suffering, understand because the fear spike, that trauma got trapped inside of you, but there's a way through it all. There's a way to get off the X. There is a way. All right, everybody, until next time, stay safe, stay ready. And remember, getting off the X, it's only one step away.
Want to awaken your protector within? If so, then head to awakentheprotectorwithin.ca and get your free Off the X training today.